Howdy ho, you handsome hunk. Grab a snack and gain some chunk. If your day is great or really sunk, we hope to help you shake the funk. So if you're good to hear some junk, buckle up. It's the Junk Monk Podcast. So now we are getting ready for junk time. That's very hard to do over the. There's a delay, so you can't actually say the same thing at the same time. So it's funny. But anyhow, so this is a time where if you want to, basically just take a bite of something and then continue talking.
I can hear my crunching.
That's what you get with a junk monk. And mustard, really?
So here in New York, at the time we're doing this, it's almost 6:15, which is almost dinner time for me. But I am enjoying some sour cream and onion chips instead. So that's fine.
Yeah, I'm eating my leftover lunch from, 2 o'clock?
I had an early lunch today.
Central time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into some junk time because this is going to be good. I know the answer to this question, but Denise, have you ever met Tony Shalhoub?
Have I ever met Tony Shalhoub? Is the sky blue? Yes, Kandyce, I have. I've had the opportunity to see him in 2 literary performances in New York City, and also at a Q&A for his 1996 movie Big Night, which he was actually in the audience for, and then afterwards they did the Q&A. And I got to meet him after all 3 of those events. So that has been one of the highlights of my life. I met him 3 times in a matter of 11 months. That's how good this stretch was. I basically just hung around the venues after the events and, checking out all the possible exits, to see where he might leave from, so I wouldn't miss him. And I was just always in the right place at the right time. And all 3 times, he was very accommodating, very patient with the fans. In fact, after the Q&A one, which was the 3rd time I met him, the promoter for the event must have had a car waiting for them to take them home. And he kept telling him, Tony, we gotta go, Tony, we gotta go. And he's just like, yeah, okay. And he kept talking to his fans and taking pictures and signing autographs and everything. So he's very, very good with the fans. He is as kind to his fans as he is talented in his work. And I actually had the opportunity to tell him that because recently I did a Zoom conversation with him, had to purchase a ticket and submit a question if you wanted to. And, if you were lucky enough to have your question chosen, you got to come on screen and ask him the question live. And I was lucky enough that my question was chosen. So I got to do that with him as well, which was really cool.
So cool.
It was a lot of fun. I was nervous as hell, but and it didn't go exactly the way I wanted. And I did mention Tony Shalhoub daily to him, but I think he was just like, "What? What's that about? Like, what the heck is this girl talking about?" Or maybe he didn't hear me too well because it turns out my connection wasn't that great that night. But it was nice because he did say my name twice. If I go back and watch the video and read lips, because there's that delay when you're both talking at the same time, so it's hard to tell. But you go back and you watch it, he says my name twice. When he first comes on, he says, "Hello, Denise." And when I told him, how much I loved him, whatever, he's like, "Thank you." So there you go. So that's been, if I can find a highlight to this year, because we know how hard this year has been, that is my highlight for this year.
That is so cool. I know a lot of people out there are like, dang, a little jelly, but that's good for you. But you also work really hard on your TonyShalhoubDaily.com stuff, and so you deserved it, And you went in his hometown and went and saw those things and waited for him, and so yeah, that's super cool. Did he happen to say anything in that talk? Did he happen to say anything about Monk, or was he kind of like over that? Or
well, my question wasn't about Monk, and I wish it had been because I had tried to tailor it to the theme of the event, which was basically, being in an online virtual world now, and, performers not being able to act, whether on screen or on stage. So I wanted to keep it to that, but they did speak a lot about Monk. He was asked a lot of questions by the host, which the host happened to have been the, I think it's his husband, of Monk writer High Conrad. So that was kind of special as well. And he spoke a lot about Monk. He asked him a lot, and they spoke about the quarantine little mini Monk reunion, Mr. Monk shelters in place. They spoke about that, and you know, Tony was saying how they took, I think he said something like 3.5 days to shoot that 5-minute clip, and they had to, you know, it was during a time when COVID was running rampant in New York in like March or April, and they couldn't have camera crew at the house. So they had all the equipment sent to them, and they did a Zoom call to figure out how to use it all. And Tony's wife, Brooke, shot all the video for it. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but, you know, as we all know, it turned out great. He also spoke about one thing that he said about Monk, which I loved, was, you know, they were asking him about kind of like getting into character and how he would transition from himself to Adrian Monk to shoot the show. And, you know, he was saying that, you know, they didn't want to make fun of the disorder, you know, the OCD, but they wanted to kind of make it entertaining where people would, you know, watch it and just be like, well, you know, especially if they suffer from it, that, you know, hey, this is not that bad. If Monk can do it, I can do it, you know, kind of thing, but without making fun of it and making a mockery of it. So, and he said, you know, they walked a very fine line with that, but he thought that they had done well with that, which I think so too. And also he was saying about how he wanted it to be the kind of situation where every episode the audience would sit down and watch it and would be so maddened by him and so driven crazy by him that they would, you know, contemplate picking up the remote and changing the channel, but not being able to do it because you want to know what happens, and it's just there's that something that's keeping you there. And if you think about it, there's so many times watching it where I would be like, oh, come on, Adrian. Even now, even though I've seen every episode 5,000 times, you know, I'm still sitting there, oh, Adrian, come on, you know, really, like, you know, like I can't think of an example off the top of my head. There's so many, but it's
like Mr. Monk on Wheels.
Oh God, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So many of them, like just when you say, come on, like no, that's not true. No, nobody does that, but yes, he does. So it's like one of those things. But and what I don't think he said too much more, because then he got into you know, the theater and stuff like that. But those are basically the highlights of his Monk commenting that evening. It was an hour-long conversation. It was very interesting. Very good. And I actually posted in my group the video portion of my Q&A, just the question that I asked. So if anyone wants to watch that, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I enjoyed it, which I know we're friends, but if you're obviously a Tony Shalhoub fan anyway, it's cool to get to see a fan talk to him like that. You know, even if you just watch you in this one video, like, oh, hey, I know Denise. Like she's Kandyce's friend, and then she's talking, you know, so I'm like adjacent met Tony Shalhoub through you. So it's like,
right.
Yeah. So definitely you guys should check it out.
After the first time I met him, which was December of 18, the night before my birthday, actually. And it was cool because my friend who was with me that night, she told him that it was my birthday. Like, she just kind of let him think it was that night, even though it was the next day. But, and he wished me happy birthday, so that was kind of cool too.
Aww.
But I had given him a package with a really long, heartfelt letter that I wrote to him, and a couple of photos to sign, and an envelope, self-addressed, postage paid, to send back to me. And every day I waited, and I would call my mom at lunch from work, and I would say, did they come? And I never bothered to tell her that if it comes, don't open it. I want to open it. We live together, so I never told her don't open it. You know, I want to open it, and she went ahead and opened it because she was too excited and she couldn't wait. And I was at work and I was in a meeting, and I'm sitting there, and she texts me and she's like, "OMG, you got the package from Tony," and I'm like, "Oh!" It was 2 months later. It was 2 months and a day later, because it was February 13th. It was a nice little Valentine's gift.
Oh.
And I got home and I looked at it, and there was the one photo signed to her, one photo signed to me, because that's what I had asked him to do in the letter, and he obliged. And he, signed with love and thanks, and it was really nice. But I could have shown you that, but I just that's me and Tony. This is the first, and for those who are just listening and can't see it, no, actually I do have this photo signed from the second time I met him. I brought a copy of this to sign. It's a 5x7. This one is the 8x10 that I have hanging on my wall. So for those who are watching as well as listening, here we are.
Oh,
but yeah, it was really sweet. A lot of good memories.
That is awesome. All right, I think junk time is about over, but that was a pretty good junk time for the books, I will say.
Thank you.
All right, so let's transition into we had a hard time coming up with the title for this one. So basically, because it's not the leftovers, but it kind of sort of is. It's anything that is different or unique about a summation that, again, doesn't fall into those categories of, it's super, super funny or super creative or super dramatic, happy, sad, whatever, what have you. So it's just kind of a little cluster of different summations, unique, whether it be, how it was shot, the actual summation itself, you'll see what we're talking about once we get started. Let's start with, so that it's a little more organized, I guess we could say. So there's a little bit of theme going on. Let's actually start with the times where Monk was wrong, right? Because usually he's right. Almost ever. I mean, the list is not long out of 125 times, and he does, obviously, he gets them right in the end. But in these specific circumstances, at some point, he gave a wrong summation during that episode, if that makes sense. So do you have any times where Monk was just flat out wrong?
Well, I have two for this category, and it's interesting because both of them share something. Well, I guess that goes without saying, because in the end, he's always right. So, but both of these episodes have multiple summations because they have a wrong one and a correct one, but I guess that applies to anyone that's wrong. But Mr. Monk gets hypnotized. So with that one, he was wrong, but he wasn't wrong because he was wrong. He wasn't like off his game. He wasn't just flat out didn't go about it the right way, didn't come up with the right answers, didn't have the right evidence. He was wrong because he was hypnotized. So when he gave his first summation, he was acting as a, let's say, 6-year-old boy. So, it starts out where they're up in this cabin or whatever, where the actress, I believe she was an actress, claimed to have been kept hostage by her husband or whatever, and she acted in self-defense to kill him. But his version, which is wrong, again, he's a 6-year-old boy, and he's telling it, and it starts out like you think it's the right thing, like, here's what happened. He brought you up here, blah, blah, blah. He didn't feed you. He chained you to the mattress. This is not word for word, but it's the idea. And you think this is all legit. Then he says something about him eating, and he wouldn't feed you. And then he started laughing so hard that his pants fell down, and you saw his hiney. So he literally died of embarrassment. And then it goes back to like present Monk with Hoppy the Frog in the shoebox. And he's just like laughing it up. And you're just like, oh my God, did he really just do that? Obviously, that's not correct. But it can be considered wrong because it wasn't right. So I just thought that was,
And there actually was a summation. They actually filmed it. And I will use my prop because I have a sandwich. The guy has his wife chained up to the bed, and he's eating the sandwich. He's like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, what the heck is this? This is insane. And then his pants fall, and the woman is like laughing at him because his pants fell down.
And if that had been the real summation, it would have been funny, but it wasn't, so it's the wrong one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was good.
One that I have that was wrong. I dug a little deep on this one. This was Mr. Monk and the missing granny. So
Oh,
they show, you got to follow it here. So the original summation that is in the middle of the show, he talks about how the couple went to go look for their missing cat because they saw a cat flyer for a missing cat, and they go to, the missing granny's house, and whenever they're there looking for their cat, they happen to see the antique chair. Well, that's how Monk explains it, and that's how they show it, but that's not what happens. If you remember, at the end, they actually saw the chair on the flyer, and that's what made them go to the missing granny's house. So then they I think they redo the summation as far as showing it. I can't remember 100% if they do, but the they do show a black and white version where it is incorrect, and they go to look for a cat, and then they see the chair. So when we know that they were looking for that chair originally. So that was a little deep dive on that one, but he was technically wrong about that.
yes, that's right. He knew the who and all of that he was able to figure out, but the whole reason for them going there, he was wrong, right? So that's correct. So I also have Mr. Monk and the Garbage Strike, which we spoke about earlier with the Alice Cooper funny summation. But now this one, I think it's, because there's 3 in this episode. There's the incorrect one, there's the funny one, the Alice Cooper one, and then there's the correct one. So I believe this was the first one where he's blaming the mayor, and he's saying that, he lied about meeting Jimmy Cusack, and which was true. He lied because it would have been political suicide, as they said, but he wasn't lying because he was up to no good. He kind of framed the mayor for doing it because he said he was there, he had his feet up on the desk, he noticed the shoes, he noticed all the, I think, cashews were eaten, so he knew that the mayor had been there, but he thought the mayor was there to kill him, and it wasn't. It was that the mayor was there because he wanted to try to work out the negotiations of the strike and everything, on the down low, this way everything could be solved. But so he was wrong. He was wrong on that. It was not the mayor, and it wasn't Alice Cooper.
That's true. Yeah, that one was interesting. It's interesting that now that I'm rethinking about it, that he was wrong in the first place, because, he kind of blames it on the garbage truck, like, oh, it's just this garbage, it's everywhere, I can't think. But that wasn't a very far off summation. He just had the wrong person. The Alice Cooper one is where he goes off the deep end. So it's like crazy. He was pretty much right, and then goes whoop, and then he's like, wait, just wrong person. And so, yeah, that's interesting.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
The last one that I have in Monk is wrong is Mr. Monk and the 3 Pies. So, this is the episode where he says, here's what I think happened.
I think you're right.
Here's where I think happened, which we'll talk about that in just a second. But what he was wrong about in this one is they show, they flat out, like, they bust this, I think his name is Pat Van Rankin or something. I don't know why I remember that, but he has the pie, and they catch the 3rd pie, and Sharona goes through it because there's supposed to be a shell casing in that pie. And they even show, the summation where a shell casing flies into this pie. And then when Sharona searches for it, she can't find it. And then so, Pat, he also thinks that there was something in that pie. And so he was also, he was also wrong too, but we're, meant to believe that like, wait a second, what is going on? Because there's nothing in this pie, and this is the last pie. So what the heck? And then later, obviously, we have the recreation of how they, where the shell casings do go. And we end up, it's in the flour, but they never actually fix the summation, which is what you were saying before. You were like, well, there obviously is always a right summation where they fix it in the end. But actually in this one, there wasn't. They never fixed it. They never explained. It's just, you assume that everything else was right, except for that it's in the flour, and then they never really discuss it again. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah, because for the summation, when they see him winning the pies at the fair or whatever, you know, in the summation, like you said, you see the casing going right into the pie. So now when he's winning all these pies and, you know, coming in second in the potato sack race instead of first, he didn't want the radio, he wanted the pie. So, you know, they follow him back to his house and they're, you know, he's going through it, he's looking for it. And it's funny because Adrian, you know, Sharona says, what's he looking for? So Adrian goes, well, Sharona. And he's like, I don't know. And then he's kind of like putting two and two together throughout the episode. So we're kind of seeing it all happen at the same time. And then we come to the realization that, okay, he's looking for the shell casing in the pie. He assumes that's where they went. So Adrian thinks that, and Pat Van Rankin thinks that, like you said. And then what's really good about the end, which I think it's a fascinating scene, not necessarily a summation, but it's a great like follow-up to it to fill in the missing piece, where they're both reenacting the scene, like you said. And Adrian's doing it, I guess, at Sharona's house. The guy's doing it at his house, and he comes to the determination that it was in the flour, and it was just, like you said, they did not do a second summation. So that makes this one a little different than the rest, because even though he was wrong, they never corrected it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they're like, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bang, bang, bang. It's, yeah.
Yeah. And if you notice, Adrian's version is so much more meticulous, so much more like organized, and so much more accurate. Where he's just going bang, 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 and just trying to get through it. And Adrian's like bang, 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 and he's doing the trajectory of where it might have gone. And it's so good because it's the same exact thing that they're conjuring up, but in completely different ways. So that was good.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Real quick, there's a little one, right? We talked about this, Mr. Monk and the Three Pies. He says, here's what I think happened. Yep. And I know that you had pointed out to me where we didn't even make a category for it because it's just, you know, these two. But this was the other one, Three Pies. And then do you remember what the other one that you said was?
Where he says, here's what I think happened?
Uh-huh.
That's the pilot.
The pilot. Okay, yeah. The pilot. Yeah. So again, you could argue that in that episode, maybe they hadn't established what, you know, like established what
maybe
exactly he was going to say.
Yeah. Maybe they wanted him to be more affirmative, be more, you know. And that's
here is what happened. Yeah. So I wonder why in the Three Pies, maybe it was because he was wrong and he had already accused the guy, or is this maybe, I can't remember when it was now, or maybe it was before he accused him with the pie. So then he says, here's what I think happened, leading you to believe that, you know, almost a little clue that he is wrong.
I almost thought when I first noticed that it was just a mistake, but I said no, because that's you can easily edit that out. It's 2 words, just, you know, I mean, I don't know how they do it, but I'm sure they have very advanced, sophisticated equipment. They could have just edited out 2 words. So I said, if it was a mistake, they wouldn't have left it. They would have corrected it. So I'm not sure what the reason was.
Maybe it was just a little nugget. Like, actually, he was the first time. So.
Right.
Speaking of that, another kind of different or unique set of episodes, I would say, is when they actually take the black and white, here's what happened, and they do something different with it, like visually different. And the first one that comes to mind is Mr. Monk in the Asylum, where again, this is episode 5, so very early on. But if you notice that there's 2, not summations, but kind of sort of, there's one that Kevin Nealon talks about where this is what happened 4 years ago and is explaining it to Monk, right? This junkie came in and he killed the doctor and then he ran out. Well, if you notice, the color of that summation is actually a sepia tone. And the real summation at the end was black and white. Now, would that be because this wasn't a Monk? Here's what happened. It was just a little flashback. So they differentiated that from a flashback, or was it a very early on nugget again that says like, look, this actually didn't happen this way. So we're going to change the color a little bit. And if you notice, you notice. If you don't, you don't. And again, they probably wouldn't want to keep that theme because then you would notice, oh, well, if it's sepia, then it's wrong, you know, but I just, And again, I noticed this because I was scrolling through the episodes looking for black and white, and I saw a sepia tone and was like, what the heck is this? And push play and was like, oh, this is the fake. Here's what happened. So again, maybe not. I don't know.
I'm leaning towards that they wanted to differentiate a flashback from the summation. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And don't forget, everything in that episode that Monk said or did, Kevin Nealon's character was. Like, I'm a detective. Oh, you're a detective too? I'm a detective.
That's true.
Kind of thing. I mean, and not just Adrian. Anybody. Like, even with the doctor, when they're outside and they're having their little session, I guess their little therapy session, and he's asking questions and like the doctor. So he was kind of like taking on the personality of everyone he was with. So it could have been that's why they had Kevin Nealon do that, because he was like being Monk.
That's true. And it was like an off-brand summation.
Yeah.
It was a great value summation there.
Okay, so another one that stands out to me in that category would be Mr. Monk and the Other Detective. And I thought Jason Alexander did an outstanding job in that character, because nobody could be as pain in the assy, yes, I said pain in the assy, as him. He just plays that part so well. I mean, even on Seinfeld he did, So, and he did an episode with Tony Shalhoub with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as well. So that's really
yep, I remember that.
Yep. So, this, if I'm not mistaken, is the only episode that I can recall where the murder was not the case that Adrian had to solve and therefore do a summation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because all along, we knew the story, because we knew that Marty was cheating. We knew how he was cheating, because his mother was a quality control agent, blah, blah, blah. So they knew the whole story. And we knew that he was kind of BSing his way through the whole thing and making himself look good. So we knew who killed whom, we knew how, we knew where, we knew when, we knew all of that. What Adrian had to solve and then do a summation about was how Marty was cheating. So I thought that was like super unique. Like, I don't really think there was any other episode where he wasn't solving and surmising the main case. It was just, this one was off the charts good.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a really good catch, because I didn't catch that at all. Literally, the only thing I wrote down about this summation, that it wasn't even summation, I thought it was funny, was that when they walk in, before they tell the summation, he's taking pictures like with the photographer, and it's like, and it has like that music, and it's like, welcome to them, dun, 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 and it's like montagey type music, right? And then they're like, can you turn that off? And he walks over to the boombox and turns it off. And it's like, I thought it was funny, because that was supposed to be, to me, like, it's like, it was supposed to be montage music. Like he's doing a fashion show, or he's doing his headshots, and he was actually playing that music while he was doing that. That like he was playing his own hype music.
So I love when he calls Natalie Nat, and then further along as Adrian is telling the summation, he's like, "Well, Nat," I believe it is Nat, because Marty Hill says something, and Natalie responds, and he goes, "I believe it is Nat." So he was like mocking him for saying Nat, which I thought was really cute too.
I did not know that that's why he said Nat. That's so funny.
Yes.
That's funny. Oh, that's funny. I noticed that, but I just thought, oh, that's sweet. But I didn't realize.
That's funny. That's one of my favorite episodes, and not many people like it. Like I see a lot of negative commentary about that, like in some of the Facebook groups and stuff. But that's way up there on my list. That one, I love that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think Noah doesn't like that one either, and I didn't know why. But I think it's there, and I think they get very defensive for Monk. Like, no, this guy's a cheater, and like he's a cheater. It's kind of like Mr. Monk and his biggest fan. Where I'm like, I love Marcy. She's so crazy, and people are like, yeah, she's a nut job. I can't stand her. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, just difference of opinion. Going back to my my Color Gate episodes, Okay, so the other one that I found that had to do with color was actually Mr. Monk and the Leper. So, originally it aired in black and white. And it's literally just a flash on the screen. They probably didn't want to take you out of the black and whiteness of the episode. But it's where Monk figures out that the keypad is the clue, right? Because it's like since 2003, and he's like, wait, not 2003, it would be before that. So anyway, they literally just show a flash on the screen in the black and white version, and that is in color. That keypad is like green, right? Because they're usually like green in person. So it was just super short, but they did the inverse, where usually they're black and white. When they aired in black and white, they flipped it to color, and then they went back to black and white. So that's my...
Well, that episode in general is different because it's in black and white, and I have not seen the black and white version, so I don't have the DVDs. It's my understanding that both versions are on the DVD. I don't have.
Yes.
Them, so I would like to see it in color, black and white, because that would definitely be a different aspect.
Yeah. And then just to finish up really quick with how they actually changed the screen, Mr. Monk and Sharona, they have when they're hiding in the closet, that does have funny parts, but they actually change the screen where he speeds up talking through the summation visually, and it goes in fast motion and everything. So again, not your standard black and white screen. They manipulated it. So I thought that I would just throw that in there. So.
Absolutely. That's a good one too. What else can we consider? So I also liked for this, what do I want to use for this one? What a good one. About Mr. Monk and the Panic Room.
Yeah.
So I like this one.
These are basically like almost random now, kind of. Just random things wrong with these episodes. Not wrong, but different. Wrong. Yeah.
But very different. Okay. It's okay that I head down that road?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're good for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so, I don't think there's any more really that are, cohesive as far as matching. Yeah.
So the Panic Room, what made this one different was that the summation was done in the dark and they're whispering, which I don't think we get to see that too much. Like maybe one or the other in another episode or two, but it's kind of like both. Like this is really like on the hush hush, like it's like they're telling the summation, or Adrian's telling the summation, and he doesn't want to be caught. So he's catching someone, but he doesn't want to be caught. Mm-hmm. So it's like that made it really, interesting. And with the flashlight, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but
oh yeah,
that makes it funny.
He has to have the flashlight on him, or on whoever's talking. So if you're talking here, you're talking here. Now I'm talking. I'm the one with the flashlight, but now you're talking. Mm-hmm. And Stottlemeyer's like, Monk, you don't have to shine the flashlight. We know it's you. We know that you're talking. Right. And he's like, okay. And he turns the flashlight off, and he's just silent.
And it's like silent. Mm-hmm.
And Sharona's like, he needs to see you. Oh. He's like, fine. Turns it on. He's like, okay, here's what happened.
And they just like resume. Yeah. So it's that's pretty different too. I like that one.
So then I'm gonna go opposite of that. So this was in the dark and whispering. The opposite of that would be Mr. Monk Goes to the Rock concert, where he is screaming the entire summation in the bright daylight sun while they're out partying, and it's super loud and obnoxious there, and they're screaming the whole thing. Really nothing more interesting about this. They're just chasing the ball, I think. Chasing the ball around and screaming. Mm-hmm. That's basically it on that one. Not too much to say. That, again, he's yelling it. Another one that's, that's a little, just random. I noticed that there were a lot, so I had to cut it, but there was a lot of summations that happened in the car. And then I realized, well, there's a lot, so that's not unique because they're all in a car. But I did keep one in, which was Mr. Monk Meets His Dad, where they're doing the slow rolling summation, and they're and it's again, it's not super different or crazy, but it's funny because he is not funny. It's actually unfortunate that the clue is, well, if we just stop driving and we turn this GPS in, then we'll have the info. But the whole time he's explaining this, they're slow rolling down the mountain and rid of that evidence. So
yeah, they had to keep it under 5,000, and they're slow rolling, and the odometer, is it the odometer? The odometer counts the miles on the car.
I think so.
Right. Speedometer. Right. So it's slowly turning like a tenth of a mile at a time, and it's like, then he's like, why are we moving? So yeah, that was a big key in catching the guy, but they managed to do it anyway. So.
Yeah.
That was good. That was very interesting. Mr. Monk Takes the Stand. That one. So what makes that one kind of in a class of its own is that I believe it's the only episode where the episode starts out, the very first line of dialogue is Monk saying, here's what happened. And they're standing on the property of Evan Gilday, and, they're he's trying to do the summation, and, so far it's going good, and we think it's legit and everything, but then, the lawyer, Big Shot, shows up, and, it just, everything has to stop, and then we kind of see how it all, unfolds throughout the episode, but it's the only one that starts with, here's what happened. Even though Monk was right, it was kind of cut short, and, so it's kind of like making us think throughout the entire episode, like, is that really what happened? Like, was he on the right track, or is this total bogus, So that was really cool, too.
Yep, that is an excellent point. Let's see, another random one would be Mr. Monk gets fired. I mean, super random, but Monk is on camera. And again, we had talked about this in our Did You Know episode where I think it was Andy Breckman, I'm not sure, that he was self-conscious because he actually had gotten the idea to film this documentary through Karen's, eyes from The Office, from the US version of The Office, and or I guess from the British version, and then the US one became really popular. So again, we don't really see, I mean, we do see him on camera, like the game show and the 100th case, but this one it's very early on, and he's aware of the camera and gets like nervous of the camera, whereas the other ones he's into it, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't care that there's a camera. This one he's like looking down at Karen like, oh, okay.
Right.
So yeah, just another little one-off there.
I love when Sharon calls it a head doily.
Oh yeah, it's a rug. It's totally a piece. Yeah, it's really good.
Are you kidding me? You can see it from here. Another different one. I don't know if we mentioned this one at all today. And one of my Mr. Monk is his biggest fan. I know we mentioned Sarah Silverman before, but this particular episode, he's trying to do his summation, and she's saying, "Say here's what happened." Well, actually, I think she's trying to get him to do his summation. So she says, "Say here's what happened. Say here's what happened." And then he also says, "Marcy," as he starts to do it, "Marcy, there's no hugging, and here's what happened." So that was just like, it's different because he's like being egged on by someone to do it, where maybe he's not ready to do it. And then when he actually does do it, she's like, too busy trying to give him a hug or whatever. And no one's ever done that before. No one's ever bothering him. They just let him do his thing, good or bad. So that was kind of cool too.
Okay, yeah, I have the biggest fan, but a different reason, like not different, but more of like, we talked about this in our episode recently, but it's a fourth wall break where they talk about, that she's acknowledging the fact that he says, here's what happened, and how on earth would she know that? Like, that's obviously like a writing tidbit where they put that in there, like, oh, Marcy knows the episode names, knows his catchphrases, so here's what happened, make him say it. And then the only other thing that I'll add is that she wants him to say it again for the camera, because she has her own like blog or whatever. And so she's like, oh, that's great. She's like, okay, say it again for the camera. And he's like, what? No. But speaking of fourth wall breaks, the other one that I thought was a kind of a fourth wall break was Mr. Monk and the TV star. And it's funny because I call it a fourth wall break because, again, it starts off with Brad Terry in the editing room, and Stottlemyre comes in, and you know, Brad is editing his show, and Stottlemyre says, "This is my favorite part, where everybody stands around and you sum up the case." And he says, "Thanks." And he's like, "I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to Mr. Monk." And so it's like, it's obviously like they're poking fun at themselves for like within Monk, they're poking fun at themselves for, you know, knowing that he says, "Here's what happened," and so does Brad Terry, but then also an audience fourth wall break in the sense that they're making a detective show within a detective show and we're watching it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, you could argue that it's not, but it's just the lines that they keep, you know, carrying on, like, oh, the like, how do you arrest somebody? So it's like dancing, you put one hand behind the other and stuff like that. And so yeah,
don't be afraid to rough him up, he's the bad guy, and stuff like that. And I love when Sharona says, and he did it without a spectroscope. So
I love that. Yeah.
There's one more episode I'm thinking of that was kind of off the wall, quirky, whatever, different. Mr. Monk is at your service. So it's kind of cool because
that's one of my favorites.
Kind of as they're going through it, Monk and Natalie are holding shotguns at him. And that's something that, like, you would never see. Unless it was, you know, you don't see it as part of a summation. We've seen Monk hold a gun before in several episodes, but not to the guy that he's about to do a summation on and, you know, so that was different.
And I noticed that upon rewatching it. I was like, because again, this is one of my favorites, the first episode that I ever saw of Monk. So it has that, you know, special place in my heart where I'm like, you know, no matter what you say about it, I love every scene. How did I forget, or not even forget, just not notice that the summation is pregnant Natalie holding a shotgun at Sean Astin. And I think it's always that part where I'm like, dang, it's about to be over. And like, I wish I had seen more pregnant Natalie. And I'm like, but what am I talking about? She's got a freaking shotgun pointed at this guy. Like, how awesome was that? I somehow overlooked that. So yeah, you're totally right. That's when have we ever seen, I've never seen Sharona carrying a gun.
No.
Like
Natalie, we've seen even when Mr. Monk is on wheels, we've seen Natalie with a gun. So, I mean, it wasn't so uncommon to see Natalie with a gun as Sharona, but in this instance, with a shotgun pointing it at the guy, he's the guy, you know, it's just crazy.
Yep, that is crazy. Okay, I think we are on to our last little segment, which is, again, this would be a little different, but inherently all these are different. These ones are pretty special though, because they are not told by Monk.
Right.
So
these are cool.
We have several different characters that have given the summations in some form or fashion, right? I'm going to start with, just because this is the only one that stands out from the crowd as far as, like you said before, that he's not the killer. You know, it's not that he's the guy, but Mr. Monk and the Rapper, where Murderous, he does the summation. And again, like he's the only, like, not only is he like not the murderer, but that'd be kind of special in itself, but he's the only non-main character that I can remember telling a summation, like, you know. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, I mean, Monk does start to tell it. He starts to say, he's like, here's what happened, but nobody will listen to him. And then so Snoop says, hey, I got your back. Here's what happened, y'all. So yeah.
Right. Well, like we said before, Mr. Monk Falls in Love, the killer does tell it in her language.
Oh, you're right.
So that is that one. But another one that stood out to me was Mr. Monk and the Actor. So
this one's good.
That whole episode is fantastic, and I love Stanley Tucci too. But it's so Randy tells it to the female cop that's standing alongside of him. And so now we're hearing it for the first time, and we're hearing Randy do it. And at the very end, when he's done, she says, "Yeah, I know." And he says, "Oh, you know?" And she's like, "Yeah, I was here when Monk told it to you about 10 minutes ago." So it's like, it's implied that Monk had already done it, and now Randy is telling this particular cop who, he's trying to impress or whatever. But we don't hear it from Monk, we hear it from Randy. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the same thing, if I can just double up, Mr. Monk Visits a Farm, it's the same situation where Randy does it. It's implied, or we get a little taste of Monk telling Randy while he's like half in sleep, half out of sleep, because he wants to build his confidence back up and get him to return to being a cop. So it's kind of the same thing where we get it from Randy, we don't get it from Monk. So I think those are pretty good.
That's true. I wonder what their reasoning behind Randy telling it in the actor was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously it is something different and just kind of spice stuff up, but like, this was the season opener and they just let Randy just tell the quick summation and Monk had nothing to do with it. And they just totally like played it off like, "Oh yeah, I was here when Monk said it." And you're like,
right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, that is a good, why? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like you said, Visits a Farm was really good. And Monk, he tells him before the night before, right? And then Randy figures it out. But then while he's telling the summation, it's been sublimated into his mind. So he's like sublimated into his mind. And he's like, I'm missing something. And Monk is like, you remember the
my mother and I were just talking about that this morning.
The sprinklers, because they're like, what does that have to do with anything? Like the salt licks. He's like, "Oh yeah, the salt." It's funny. So yeah. Yep, but yeah, those were some Randy ones. I'll talk about the Stottlemyre ones. And you might be thinking, what? Stottlemyre never tells a summation. And you'd be kind of sort of right in a way. Mr. Monk paints his masterpiece. This one is told by Randy and the captain, because Monk is, he thinks he's all famous and amazing, and he's painting his paintings and showing them in the gallery, and Stottlemyre and Randy come up to him and are like, "Look, Monk, you're in danger. It's about the paper. That guy who keeps buying those paintings from you, he's in the mob, and these canvases are made out of paper." So, and so they go back and forth explaining it to him while Monk, like, his face drops and he's putting it all together and he's like, "Gosh, I suck. These are terrible." And then everyone in the studio is like, "Oh, thank God. I knew it."
Right. Yep. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So that was like a half Stottlemyre summation. And then Stottlemyre's other summation is the private eye, but there's not a standard like black and white summation where he like, "Here's what happened." He more puts it together, and the reason is that Monk doesn't even explain it either. This is where Monk gets stowed away on the boat. Then the boat floats away, and we don't really see Monk really explain it. He just figures out, "Wait, you're not mad about a fender bender, are you?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you're really smart," and he's going to shoot him. But on land, when the captain and Randy, Linda, and Natalie are there trying to figure out what's going on, the captain is like, "Wait, Dr. J. Bennett, that guy, that his name keeps coming up in the missing teachers report." And so Randy says, "Yeah, it's on all the call sheets." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, he's the murderer. He took the body. He went and dumped her out into the ocean. Then he came back. He must have gotten his car and he hit your car, Linda, in the parking lot. That's where you get the fender bender, and that's where they collide." And that case is pretty complicated. Like, like if you're not, if you're not following it, in a way, like, okay, what does this guy have to do with the fender bender? That's what happened. And Stottlemyre is totally the one that explains that. So he doesn't really get his, glorious moment. But I will say that he probably impressed Linda in that moment. With that. She's like, "Oh, I have a boat." So it is honestly surprising to me that Stottlemyre does not have a moment like that. But I don't know.
Yeah. Good point. They should have given him one, because even Natalie got one in The Birds and the Bees. The Monkey and the Birds and the Bees.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing special about the summation itself, other than the fact that Natalie told it, because she's with Julie's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, soon to be boyfriend again. And she just basically says, I think his name was Tim. Tim,
Mm-hmm.
I've been wanting to say this for a long time. Here's what happened. And she just told it. I mean, the summation itself was pretty straightforward, a simple, what happened. But what makes that one, so different is the fact that she did it. And Monk wasn't even around. He wasn't even in the picture. It's not like she was telling it and she had some assistance from him or some, guidance which way to go. He wasn't even around. So that was definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that stood out to me in that one, besides her, right, is her her being very calming. Like she's like, I've been wanting to say this a long time. Here's what happened. So blah 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 blah. And whereas they're usually not so subdued, in contrast to, I think, our final person that, unless you had any more, up your sleeve, but the final person is obviously Sharona.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically the stark contrast of Natalie in general, but her summations, plural, she has two, are completely different than that. The one where she, the billionaire mugger, where she wants to tell the summation, but she, ends up insisting that Monk do it. It's really funny because she starts to tell it, and then Monk looks at her like, okay. And then he's like, did you want to do it? And she's like, no, you're fine. And that one's really funny.
Yeah.
But
and that happens, I think, twice, where he says you want to do it, and she's like, no, you're doing fine, you do it better, or whatever. So it's and with that Jersey accent, it's just because what's being told is kind of little dicey as it is. So when she does it in her Jersey accent, it makes it even more of a hoot, really.
Yeah, and they go back and forth, and Stottlemyre is like, for God's sake, somebody just tell it.
Right. And then don't forget, Freedom Top is in that whole scene too, so that makes that extra special.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, the other summation that Sharona gets goes to jail, where that would be the season finale of season 2. And again, giving a finale to somebody else besides Monk, very interesting choice. But I will say that it is more amped up than Randy's was, because she figures out in the book, holy crap, this guy, he wanted to get his organs, blah, blah, blah. And she tells the entire, very complicated again, case.
Yes.
And
she did an outstanding job.
Yeah, and she was going through, what is it? He said it's just down 5 hallways or something. So she's running through the 5 hallways and has the book and is telling, the warden or whoever that guy is, and it's just, it's really good. That one's really good.
She's in the rec room. I had to say it because it's just too damn funny. But that's a good point. Yeah, and Biddy Schramm did an outstanding job, because that was a very complicated dialogue to get out that she probably wasn't used to, and it was very good.
Yeah. Oh, also at the very end, they kind of poke fun at it again about it being a summation, because Monk starts to tell it, and he's like, oh, and she's like, no, I already did the whole summation thing.
Yeah, that's right. You're no big deal anymore.
Yeah, I summed up the case. Don't worry about it. He's like, oh, okay. So,
all right.
I think we're done with all the non-Monk and all the different ones. I think we're done. That's our last entire category. So we've talked about quite a bit of episodes. And okay, now here's the fun part where we talk about our favorite summations of all time in the TV show Monk. I am so excited for this. And I will let you go first, since you are the guest. And if you want to start off with your honorable mention that didn't quite make your top 5, we'll start with your honorable mention.
So we're going bottom up.
Yeah.
Okay. So my honorable mention, and it's funny because when I originally had done this list, I picked the 1. And then after I did it, I went back to it, and I'm like, oh, but there's this one, and there's that one, and there's this one, and there's that one. So, but I'm gonna stick to my original pick, Mr. Monk Goes to Vegas, because I absolutely love that episode in general. But the summation. The reason why I like it is because, and we spoke about it earlier, what it involved, but I loved it most because of the, I guess, the strength and the will that Monk showed in that, like the toughness, like, I could do this, I could win Randy's money back, and I can nail this guy. So bam, give it to me. Here we go. Bring it. So that's what I liked about it.
Nice. Okay, my honorable mention was Mr. Monk and the Psychic. I also I thought about putting this in my actual list because it really is a good one. If you go back and watch it, what I actually love about it is that it's, again, second episode, so it's very early, like dark Monk, I would call it, where the show is just in general more dark and moody, and Adrian is more moody, and he gets really testy with the captain. And I will say that if there had been more summations like this, obviously this one wouldn't have stood out, but it was so early that it's almost like a different character. It's really interesting. So I chose this one. I love like what you were mentioning before the gotcha moment, right? Because we put this in the gotcha section, but I actually love it for the first part where he's down there, like you said, and he sends Sharona away. And, he starts going at Leland, like, look, you're the best cop that I know. You've got to get on board here. Ashcombe was sleeping around, and then Stottlemyre says, like, are you crazy? Like, you accused him of murder to his face. And he's like, there goes your career. And he's like, well, what career? And he's like, exactly. And you wonder why you're not wearing a badge. And then that's where you get Dark Monk. And he's like, here's what happened. Ashcombe did his wife, but he had a problem. There was a mudslide and he was buried. He couldn't very well just say, maybe we should dig over there. Somebody had to find her. And Stottlemyre says, can you prove it? And he says, only if you help me. Right. So it's a, very good, again, gotcha moment, but to me, I love it because of Dark Angry Monk.
Yes. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really good. Okay, so my number 5 pick is Mr. Monk and the Other Detective, which we spoke about earlier. The reason why I love it so much is because, again, it's Adrian is kind of forced into solving something that he really doesn't want to solve. He doesn't want to be bothered figuring out why some jerk is cheating and making himself look good to the SFPD. He wants to solve murders, homicides, high crimes. He doesn't want to be bothered with this nonsense. So the fact that he still did it, and while at the same time helping Marty and saving his mother and all, the kind, sympathetic Monk, it was just a good combination and a good, perseverance by him. So that's why I chose that one.
Nice. Okay. My number 5 is Billionaire Mugger. So, of course, I got to represent my girl Sharona. Like you said, with that Jersey accent, of course, she always has the accent, but it's just so good. And I felt like this was really big for her. And I didn't mention that Sharona had 2 summations in 2.5 seasons, and Natalie had 1 summation in the whole rest of the show, which to me is kind of crazy. But again, Sharona's got that personality and that character. So this was like, I think this was really good for her. And she had done her detective work to be able to rightfully do this summation, but she still wanted Adrian, she wanted her boss to be her boss, and he was okay with, she was okay with telling it, but he was also okay with her telling it. So it was actually a really sweet thing, as funny as it was, that it was actually really sweet that they were both okay with each other telling it, and not like, well, I want to tell it because I did this. Well, I mean, I'm the boss. So, you know what I mean? So it could have went totally different. It could have been a like suck it up moment, but it was a very like generous going back and forth moment. And Sharona has the great line where the lady's like, what, me? I didn't do it. And she's like, lady, your lawyer's going to have enough to do to keep you off death row. And it's so good. And also I have to mention, part of the summation is where they acknowledge Frady Cop, and Adrian is like pointing out like, oh, this is Joseph Morato. And Stottlemyre's like, just like looking at him, he's like jaw drop. It's so funny. And Adrian's super serious. Yeah, and he's like Joe Morata, he's a young actor. He's like, Joe wanted me to mention that he can be seen in Cat on the Hot Tin Roof at Harris Webley Theater all next week. And it's so funny. He's so serious, and it's just, yeah. Of course, that one ends with the crazy guy going, oh, and like yelling, super random. But the summation is really good, and I love that one, and I love Sharona, so I had to put her on my list. I had to do it.
Had to do it. So for our next pick, I went with Back to School, because like we talked about before, it was a real mic drop, like a boss, gotcha. What was the other thing we said? Oh, snap moment. And just his and again, you know, a lot of it comes from my love of Tony Shalhoub as an actor and as a person. So when I watch him in Monk and I see certain scenes where he's just so brilliant, like it's not just, well, this episode of Monk or this summation or this performance was so good. It's just him being so good. So I'm a little biased towards that, but again, it comes back to, you know, we see Monk as, you know, this, you know, he's got a lot of problems, got a lot of issues. He's, you know, afraid of this, afraid of that, and all this stuff going on with him. And he suffered a lot, you know, emotionally, physically, and, you know, whatever. And then like to see him just come out swinging, and, you know, and I'm always saying, you know, all these things that he did, how come he didn't get his dad back sooner? But obviously then there'd be no show. So they couldn't do that until the end. But these are the types of things where, you know, he's so strong, and you know, when the chips are down, he does come through and, you know, gets his man. So that's why I like this one, because, you know, he gave it to someone that gave him a hard time the whole time. So that's why.
Nice. That was a good one. My number 4 is Mr. Monk and his favorite show. And honestly, I if I'm being honest, it's probably the set and the wardrobe that were like my favorite part. But it was still really like a clever setup, right? With the dream and the, you know, he being knocked out and all of that. But I thought the child murderer was probably the most creative part, where like I thought it was really interesting that she knows the information of her future self. And then of course, I personally love the Brady Bunch. So again, back to the wardrobe and the set, it was really reminiscent of that. And also the fact that like those children are grown up now, like the Brady Bunch children are grown up. So it's like similar age range of them, which makes sense. And, you know, they have those kind of stories like that where it gets really silly. And they're like, you don't pay me child support. And it's like, how do I even know that kid's mind? It's very silly and it's funny. And it's another one of those that's kind of trippy. And of course, groovy. This is very groovy. And I love that. And my favorite quote from that one was, we talked about this, killing people is never the answer. I'm afraid you're grounded, young lady. Oh, it's just cute. I love all the kids. They're just really cute in it. And yeah.
That long hug that Monk gives his father is kind of cool too. It's like, I don't know what to think about it, but it was dragged out for a reason. So whatever it is.
Yeah, my favorite had nothing to do with the summation. Was when he walks in and the whole crowd is cheering for him, and he's just like, that's the best. I can't wait to do that episode, honestly.
I can't. Okay. So I have Cabin Fever next. Just for the creativity of him and Randy doing it at the same time. And I loved when Randy said, guess I'm gonna have to arrest my girlfriend now. She'll probably break up with me. I mean, that was just too much. It was so funny. And just, you know, even like we said before with the sheriff asking me which one he's listening to, neither. It was so good because they were both right. They both were telling different parts of the story that were important for us to know. You know, and then of course at the end, which is not really part of the summation, but when Randy says, you know, you guys, I forgot what he says, you guys did whatever, and I led them right to us. And he's like, yeah, good job. that was pretty good too.
Yeah, that's really funny. You're on number 3, right? That was number 3.
That was 4 for me.
Was that 4?
Oh no, I missed one. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I missed one, but that's okay.
Okay, so I'm saying number. Oh wait, so am I saying number 3 then?
You are on number 3.
Because it's my turn, right? Okay, yeah. So I guess either way.
I missed one.
Okay. So my number 3 episode is Mr. Monk Goes to Mexico. It is such a funny one. Like you said, Tony's performance is fantastic. I get thirsty every time I see that one. And for some reason, I feel like it needs to be Sierra Springs. And so to me, that's just like even better performance, because I'm like, no, I can only drink Sierra Springs. It's like, because I obviously can drink water if I want to, but I'm like, I can't drink it. So I don't know. But honestly, the MVP for this summation to me is the hotel owner. And he is so chill and he's so funny and so hospitable, and it's so cute. And they're running around like, let's get the heck out of here. But when they go downstairs, they're checking out, and they're telling him, oh, we're checking out. And he's like, oh, which room? And they're like, the one with the bomb behind the painting. And he says, ah, yes, room 403. And then Monk is trying to tell this whole summation, and he keeps interrupting, like, oh, should I put this on your card? And he's like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. And he's like, should I staple them together? And he's like, just do whatever you want. And it's so funny. And then, of course, the best line is he's talking, to Madero, and he's, got his lips and everything. And he's like, he was a thirsty victim. And then Sharon was like, Adrian. And he's like, what? I mean, a perfect victim. Oh, that's really good. Mr. Monk Goes to Mexico. Really funny. Love that one. That was my number 3 episode. So
awesome. Very good. So like I said, I made a little boo-boo, and I skipped my number 5. So I'm going to insert that one now. This is really my number 5, and every other one gets moved.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Monk stays in bed. I like this one because just there's so many things going on with this one. Like we said, it's a little funny because he's talking about the cough drops, and for a moment it seems like that's all he's concerned about. And then there's the Natalie in danger aspect of it, and then there's the him being so brilliant, of course, aspect of it, and then the thrill is heightened when the murderer, the guy comes home, and Natalie's still in the house, and there's just so many moving parts to it, and I think it was really very creative. So I'm including that in my top 5.
Nice. Okay, so my number 2 is Mr. Monk and the Game Show. So this one doesn't, I'll be honest, it's not super like stand out, but every time I watch this episode, this is the part that I wait for, right? Whereas obviously you want to know what happens, blah, 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 but in every episode, but this one I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. It starts, where he gives him the little look like, oh yeah, I figured it out. And then you go into, he gets into the bonus round after all the incessant, like buzz, buzz, buzz. And, he makes his way into the bonus round. But what I love about this is, because, there's a lot of Trudy past and stuff in this with her father and mother. And what's great about this one is not only is it suspenseful, and it's a great gotcha, right? With the creativeness of them being on the game show and how they work that into the crime and the summation like together. But I love that Dwight Ellison he's a champion for Monk. This, he obviously he called him in the first place to find out who's cheating, like you said. But then once he knows, oh, Adrian's got this, he's like, Ronnie Lakeman's like, can we go to a commercial? And he's like, go to a commercial and you're fired. And so he wants that like gotcha moment for Adrian. And then he even comes over the intercom and gives him Val's phone number. And then the great, where Monk is holding up the phone and he's like trying to figure out his password. And he's like, okay, does that. And then he goes into it. And again, it's just super, super good, gotcha, creative, but mixed with some sentiment that he's doing this. And he's all the while impressing his father-in-law. And, of course, he has a little buzzer at the end where he's like, bing, and Ronnie Lakeman's like, whatever, jerk. But then Dwight comes in at the end and says, you're amazing, as always, like Trudy said, and, thank you. And he says, thank you for Trudy. And so
I cry every time.
No, it's a great one. It's a great one.
It is. It's really good.
So
nice,
we're at our number 1. Numero uno, right? All right. These are the good ones.
Okay. So, this is my second favorite episode and my first favorite summation, and that is Mr. Monk Gets Drunk. I mean, we touched on all of it before. Number one, it's lengthy. It's longer than most summations, I think. Some of them are real quick, and this one just kind of carries on. And it's very hard to, no matter how good of an actor you are, it's very hard to play drunk, because with a drunk, there's anything can happen. So when you're trying to act drunk, it's like, well, what do I do? Because I can do anything, so what do I do? And I mean, obviously he had lines written for him, but still, I think a lot of it was ad-libbed. I think the part where he's, fussing around with Stottlemeyer's mustache and,
Yeah.
I love you and all of that, I think that was all ad-libbed, which, I read that they had the ability to do on that show, which is very different than Maisel that Tony is on now, where they're to the script and there's no negotiating on that. So it's I think the combination of it being written so well, it being executed so well, and then just him improvising and doing things probably that were not in the script, I think just made it hilarious. And as much
Puts
as
the
we
cup
like to
on the lamp. It's like, oh, you
yeah,
warm that
cup
up.
of Joe, keep that warm. And I was like, no, so it's like, but I think that it we like the sappy ones, we like the thrillers, we like but in the end, I'm all for the comedy. Give me the comedy, and this is number one in comedy for me. So,
I agree with that. You picked first. That was the one on my list. That was the coveted one that I wanted. But I will say that I didn't end up with the bad one. It was the number 2 on my list, which is Mr. Monk and the Rapper.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what other summation can you sing? Right? It's catchy. It gets stuck in my head every time I talk about it, but it's also funny because Adrian does have some, lines, and when it first starts, it's like the beat's like don't, and so Adrian's like bobbing up and down, like it's very awkward and very cute. And of course, Adrian starts it off by saying, people brothers, let me give you the 411. That means information, and it's so funny. And then Murderess says, am I right or am I wrong? And then Monk, it's a rap, but Monk, of course, comes in and is like, he's making a lot of excellent points. He really is. So funny. And I wanted to throw in some of my favorite lines from the summation, because when Noah and I were doing this very recently, we were like, wow, we suck because we just keep going, no, man, you got set up, and no. So we're like, we should probably have learned a little bit of the words. So I put my favorite lines. So he starts off with saying, Snoop gets to say, here's what happened. Have you ever been accused? Man, you got set up and it really wasn't you. Man, you got set up trying to plant something on me, and you said I killed your homie. And he also says, there was a fatal flaw to the perfect crime. See, Sunday was daylight savings time. Extra large ran out of luck when the limo came by and picked him up. The pocket watch up under the car, the trigger went boom, and there went extra large. So again, it's much, much longer than that. And he tells it, obviously he raps it so well, and, coupled with the black and white screen, it's just really good. It's very entrancing, and you're into it and you want to know what happens. And also it's a very good beat. And then, he comes out of it and he's like, man, you got set up, and everyone's into it then, man, you got set up. And then he says something, I didn't write this one down, but he says like, Adrian Monk took my direction, and he gives him, Adrian his props, and it's really cute and sweet. And so, and then it ends with him saying, the last place that you're going to see is a death row jail cell. Boom. And then drops the mic, and Monk tries to pick it up.
Because that's what Monk does.
That's what he does. So
awesome.
Yeah, those were our top 5. Let us know, wherever you're listening to this, if you, reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the things. Let us know what, who, if you thought or one list was better, not that it's a competition, but it's just, fun, all in good fun, whose list was better, what your favorites are, what your top 5 list would be, anything, we like to interact with you guys. And I know you like to get your opinions of Monk because, obviously that's what we're here for. So I posted in a couple of the Monk groups and asked you guys what y'all's favorite summations were. So I have my handy clipboard that I usually have, which is so I mean I'll spout off all the ones that people said. Just I mean Circus, Dale the Whale, Mexico, Manhattan, Genius. The Genius, we didn't even talk about that one. Back to School, Cabin Fever had a few. The Kid had a few. Favorite Show, Vegas, Visits a Farm, Gets Hypnotized. The top ones were Gets Drunk. Actually, it was a top one, but it wasn't the top one. The Rapper had quite a few. The second most popular one was Mr. Monk and the Miracle, which I thought was interesting. Which I mean, obviously we talked about it, but a lot of people were like the one where they're chanting, so funny. Yeah. And then y'all's favorite one of all was Mr. Monk and the Garbage Strike.
Oh, okay.
So,
and you know which one we no one neither on Facebook nor we mentioned. What's that? And it's one of both of our favorite episodes because we've discussed it in the past, you and I. Mr. Monk Goes to the Theater.
Oh, I know. What is the summation for that though?
Well, he figures it out when Sharona takes his temperature because he's nervous about going on stage, which I find to be hilarious because Tony Shalhoub is an established theater actor. He was trained in the theater, so just that alone, the irony kills me. But and then it comes back from break where, you know, he's got to go out on stage. You know, here he goes, and you know, Jenna Ryan is out there doing her part, and Sharona's off stage, and she goes and finds, you know, the evidence that they need, the peanut oil or whatever it was, and when it's all going down, and she's saying, you know, Adrian, she knows, and then it kind of gets out of hand for a little bit, and then the next thing you know, Sharona's on stage beating the crap out of her. Her hair is flying everywhere, and you know, is there a doctor in the house? And Adrian says, I was here the other night, you were the doctor in the house. And Sharona's on stage with him there, and she calls her a bitch. She says, shut up, bitch.
Show's over.
Show's over. So it's like, it's that was kind of part of it. That was, and I don't know how either one of us missed that, but there you go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. I will not talk about that one because I will go on and on and on. So I think that about wraps up our show. Thank you guys for sticking with us. I hope that you genuinely have enjoyed our very thorough conversation about all of the Monk summations. Not even all. We didn't even talk about them all. Like half, maybe. But I think that we will wrap it up. The only other thing that I have is Denise, where can people find you and Tony Shalhoub Daily?
So if you'd like to follow me individually, I'm at It's Denise Winter on Instagram and Twitter. For Facebook, I have the Tony Shalhoub Daily group. You can just search Tony Shalhoub Daily. You'll find the Facebook page, and from there you can link over to the private group. I strongly recommend joining the group because I post exclusive content there that you won't find on the general public page. And Twitter is at Daily Shalhoub because Twitter is a pain in the neck and it didn't have enough characters for it to be Tony Shalhoub Daily. So Twitter is at Daily Shalhoub. Instagram is at Tony Shalhoub Daily. And don't forget the website, TonyShalhoubDaily.com.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Denise, for joining me. It has been a pleasure as usual. We could go on for hours and hours more, but we'll stop.
Okay.
We'll stop. Okay. All right. We will see you guys on our regularly scheduled episodes. I hope you enjoyed this bonus one, and we will see you later, and stay safe because it's a jungle out there. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Junk Monk Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so please give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, follow us at Junk Monk Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
If you want to know more about Kandyce, she's at Hardens and Hardhats on Instagram. And if you want to know more about me, Noah L., subscribe to my vlog, Noah Hernandez, on YouTube. Also, you can leave us a voicemail at 323-366-0477 with your questions, comments, or just to show us some love.
Don't forget to catch up on Monk with Amazon Prime Video, and of course, subscribe to our show.
You'll thank me later.